In this video, we're going to be reviewing what rational numbers are, where they come from, and just a couple of their properties. So, a rational number comes from dividing two integers. Remember that an integer is a positive or a negative whole number. So when I divide two of those, it makes a rational number. So, which ones are rational numbers? So 3 is an integer, right? It's a whole number, it's positive. But it's also a rational number because 3 divided by 1 is 3. So 3 is an integer divided by 1, which is an integer. I divided two integers, that makes a rational number. So 3 is a rational number. So here I have 1/4, which remember that fractions are just division problems. 1 divided by 4, I divided two integers, so 1/4 is a rational number. Okay. Negative 0.2 comes from negative 1/5. I did negative 1, an integer, divided by 5, an integer. So negative 0.2 is indeed a rational number. Okay, so go through and either check or circle, somehow note to yourself which ones are the rational numbers and make sure that you understand why. Where did they come from? So pause the video for a second, check that out. All right, so we're going to go through and explain why all of these, they are all rational numbers. So negative 15 I can get by taking negative 15 divided by 1, right? It's just negative 15. This is an integer. This is an integer. I divided them. That's a rational number. Okay. Negative 9/15, that's negative 9 divided by 15. Negative 9 is an integer. 15 is an integer. I divided those two. That makes it a rational number. Okay, so any integer is also going to be a rational number because if I just divide it by 1, it becomes itself. So that is a rational number. 5/8 is 5 divided by 8. I divided two integers. That's a rational number. Negative 12, if I divide it by 1, negative 12 is an integer. Divided by 1, which is an integer, I divided two integers. That's a rational number. 68 divided by 1, 68, I divided two integers to get there. That's a rational number. 0.1 comes from 1 divided by 10, 1/10. That's a rational number, right? 1 is an integer, divided by 10, which is an integer. I divided two integers. So, all that to say, if you can divide two integers to make a number, that's a rational number. So some properties of rational numbers is that there's different ways for them to be equivalent. So equivalent means equal or has the same value. So to see if fractions are equivalent, we're going to change them to decimals. So 3/8 is 3 divided by 8. 3 goes inside the division, 8 goes on the outside. 8 does not go into 3, so I'm going to write a 0. Add a decimal point and a 0. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. We're left with 6. Going to add another 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. 60 minus 56 is 4. Still got some more numbers. Going to add another 0. Then 8 goes into 45 times. Okay, and then this negative in front means that the whole thing is going to be negative. So negative 0.375. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. So the next one. Negative 3 divided by 8. So 3 goes inside the division. 8 goes on the outside. 8 does not go into 3, so I add a decimal, add a 0. 8 goes into 30 3 times. We're left with 6. Add a 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 56. Left with 4. Add a 0. 8 goes into 45 times. Okay. And then a negative divided by a positive is going to be negative. They're different signs. So negative 0.375. So all I'm doing right now is I'm changing the fractions to decimals to double check their values. So 8/3 means 8 divided by 3. This time 8 goes inside the division and 3 goes on the outside. 3 goes into 8 2 times. We're left with 2. I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. 3 goes into 26 times. We're left with 2, add a 0. 3 goes into 26 times. Okay, and I'm going to tell you that this repeats. So it's going to be 2.66666. The 6's go on forever. Okay. All right, then the last one we're going to divide. 3 over negative 8 means 3 divided by negative 8. 3 goes on the inside of the division. 8 goes on the outside. 8 goes into 3 0 times. 8 goes into 30 3 times. We're left with 6. So I add a 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 67 times. That's 56. Add a 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 45 times. And then a positive divided by a negative is going to be negative. So negative 0.375. So the ones that are equivalent are the ones that had the same values. Right, so when I did the division and they were equal, these 3 were equivalent. There we go. So 3 over negative 8, negative 3 over 8, or negative 3/8 were equivalent. Okay. So on this side, I want you to go through, take a second, try it on your own, and figure out which ones of these are equivalent. All right, so we should have tried it on our own. Okay, so 5 over negative 2 means 5 divided by negative 2. 5 goes inside the division, 2 goes on the outside. 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. We're left with 1. And I don't want remainders, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10. And then a positive divided by a negative, they're different signs, is a negative. Okay. So 2/5 as division means 2 divided by 5. 2 goes inside the division, 5 goes on the outside. 5 does not go into 2. I'm out of numbers, so I need to add a decimal and a 0. But 5 goes into 20 4 times. And it's going to be positive because they have the same sign, so that's 0.4. I'll draw little lines between these. How about that? Okay. So negative 5 over 2 means negative 5 divided by 2. 5 goes inside the division, 2 goes on the outside. 2 goes into 5 2 times. We're left with 1. I'm out of numbers, so I add a decimal and a 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Don't have anything left now. Okay, a negative divided by a positive, they're different signs, so the answer is going to be negative 2.5. And then the last one, negative 5/2. This is negative of whatever 5 divided by 2 is. So 5 divided by 2, 5 goes on the inside of the division, 2 goes on the outside, 2 goes into 5, 4, 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4, that's what I was trying to say. We're left with 1. So I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And so the negative of 2.5 is negative 2.5. So when I get the same answer, the same value, right, the same decimal, those are the ones that are equivalent because they end up equaling the same thing. So 5 over negative 2, negative 5 over 2, and negative 5/2 are all equivalent. So if there's just one negative in the fraction, it can go to the numerator. So like we had negative 5 over 2. It can go to the denominator. So 5 over negative 2. Or it can go in front of the whole thing. In front of the whole fraction. So negative 5/2. Right, so these three are equivalent. Because when I divide them, they end up being the exact same thing. Same number, same sign. And that is our recap on rational numbers. Thanks for following along.